guys, welcome back to Clockwork Noodles for another breakdown of Sugar Apple Fairy Tale episode 6. We are officially halfway through. You know what that means when we start hitting those sixes? It means the midway review is coming up this week. I officially have to go to my drawing board and commit to my top 3 OP, ED and current standing of animes. Get to discuss with you guys, everybody on the channel, what my thoughts are on this season as a whole, how I think it's progressing, what I'm liking, what I don't like so much. I might give some fun little awards. It will be a fun video that I hope to have with you by midweek. So make sure you guys are subscribed. That's coming your way very shortly. I'm excited, but I'm also really nervous. I feel like I know what I want to do. I've got doubt. There's visible doubt in how I'm ordering things. So I can't wait to finally talk to you guys about it. Let's get going on to episode 6. I've got a few theories. I also have my first sin for the anime. You guys know me, it's very rare that I will sin something, but I will talk about it when we get there. Hugh is back, and I do love Hugh. Hugh is very hot, and I appreciate this. But he is back to show the audience his level of skills. We finally get to see what a true artisan sugar sculptor can do. This is what Hugh can make. And it's a really interesting piece. It's quite gloomy. He's going to his daughter's wedding. It's a reminder of what once was, and I feel like the piece itself is actually very important because this anime does surprise me occasionally by going into such depths, linking things together or really thinking things through. I think there's actually hidden depth to the statue that Hugh has made. We were told that Anne was offered everything. This anime could have been over in 6 episodes if Anne had just said yes. That would have been it. We wouldn't have to go into this sus plot that I think is really sus. She simply declines because she wants to do it correctly, which is admirable, but she must realise that it really wasn't her fault. The king also felt really bad, praised her work so much that he really wanted to see it again, and it was asking after her. The anime could have been done. This could have been it. She could have just said yes to Hugh, becomes part of Mercury, gets recognised, done. Anne has decided to further the plot with us. That isn't my sin, by the way. I understand where she's coming from, so that's not my sin. I am a bit worried that her turning this down has led her to an even worse situation. Anne right now cannot find any customers. Nobody wants to hire her. Nobody wants to do it. Funny moment when they're at the table where both Mithril and Xiao both trash talk Anne as if she's not even in the room. Both calling her stupid, but then saying, no, I wasn't going to call her stupid, but you just said that. Absolutely hilarious. Really enjoy it. It's also very nice this episode to see an innkeeper who treats the fairies as equals, as paying customers. I don't care if you have an issue, you can leave. That is impressive. It's nice to start seeing some shifting opinions amongst the people to show you that not every single person is a bad person. We get that complete extreme a bit later on as well with William, who is perhaps a friend, ? I want to talk about my first sin. And if you've been on the channel long enough, I have a thing for info dumping. Sometimes you can do an info dump and it feels great. It makes sense. This person is explaining to a student. That makes sense to me. Let me tell this character who has just come to my house the rules of the house. To get the background on the political hotbed that is now very important to this anime, overarching plot of there being a political debate and there's kingdoms a little bit tense against each other. There's been a few rebellions and our current king had to put them down. I'm not sinning the backstory. I'm sinning the way it is conveyed to the audience. Now, Hugh is basically reeling off history to the king, the man who was there, the man who actually put this rebellion down, the man who is now feeling very uneasy about how he did it. It doesn't make sense to me. It felt a little bit weird that it was Hugh who was reeling all this history for the audience back to the king who actually was there. We technically get the same info dump, and it makes sense when it comes to Shal and Anne, and I'll explain why that makes sense a little bit later on. This little bit does set up the tension between the town we're going to, which is William, who is in charge of that. He's the Duke, and our king. William is apparently looking for a sugar artisan. Bit sus. He was also willing to take anybody as long as he liked your piece. This anime is trying to set up a few red herrings, and I think I'm catching it. I think we're supposed to be sus of William. Probably not the case, and the reason why he doesn't care who it is because he's actually after something specific. If he likes your work and it's specific enough, doesn't matter if you've got qualifications, you've just got to meet the commission. That's what I'm getting at this at the moment. But it was absolutely perfect to Anne, who had no customers, because I need customers. I'm going to go and try and get that really high reward. After the little info dump we just had, we know that William is considered to be the last spark of rebellion. A lot of the money that the country he's from earns is then reclaimed by the king. What I also got from this was William was 13 or 12 or something when it occurred. You could claim that it wasn't really fair because you're punishing him and and he may not have actually been in charge, because sometimes you get a retainer, somebody will act on behalf of the king. I love the plot, I love this anime, but it did feel like, aside the competition and them running to the competition, the plot had vanished. It did feel like we didn't really have anything going on. This is the anime coming in with something a lot heavier. This is what's going on. This is how hot the climate is right now politically. I'm thankful the anime has gone and giving us a lot more to work with now. I'm really excited to see how far they're going to take this now, because it feels like this could be quite an important plot line. So we do get the same info dump given by Xiao to Anne this time, telling her about the town that we've just arrived in. Now, why does this actually make sense and is way better than before? Is because Xiao is older, wiser, he's lived through a lot of history, and is young, and is also quite sheltered. So she doesn't technically know the area. Xiao then telling her all of this information makes sense. You would tell somebody, hey, by the way, we're here. This is the history that I know. It makes sense. So this to me is good info dumping. Info dumping has to happen regardless. It's just some animes handle it a lot better than others. The second info dump was done very nicely because Xiao is informing Anne, this is what happens. This is why this town looks nice, but it's not thriving because the money is draining elsewhere. I like it. So let's meet the man in question, who could be being set up as a bit of a red herring. William, emotionless, ominous initially, and he's very sus. But what I technically started getting vibes from him, he's mourning or grieving, or he's missing somebody, and I think it's the fairy in the picture that he's trying to get this commission done. Money is no objection. I just want the perfect sculpt of this fairy, who maybe was a nurse, maybe it was the woman who looked after him as he grew up. Maybe that's the case. I feel like this might be the actual story underneath this ominous plot that we've now got starting to bubble, because this entire second half felt really ominous. Something didn't quite feel right. It felt like we were going into a bit of a horror or a crime. So let's talk about Anne's amazing next piece. Is Mithril. I did right. Mithril would love it. Or maybe not. Mithril doesn't want to eat it because he feels like it's cannibalism. I get that. If somebody made me out of chocolate, I would feel a little bad trying to eat me. However, I do like chocolate, and if I got really hungry, I probably would start nibbling on my nose. Maybe my nose, and then I'll go to my ears maybe. William is commissioning this fairy. We had those big old questions. Who is she? He's very emotionless. However, he then has quite an important stance. He is against fairies being slaves. He hates it. Obviously, he's commissioning somebody to make a statue of a fairy. Anne's piece was chosen because she basically made a fairy. I can imagine Jonas also made a fairy as well, probably because he's like traumatized after what happened. Her piece for Mithril was very, very nice. I think she was definitely in the right ballpark. If theoretically he ended up on the throne, would slavery against fairies end? Would he initiate that rule that fairies should never be slaves? If that's the case, I'm technically on his side. I know that that means war, that means death, and I don't want that to happen. The monarch I'd stand behind more is William. However, I don't want there to be a war, so I'm hoping we can somehow achieve it without there being a war. Part of me thinks that William perhaps doesn't want a war either. Guys, it is back. The hashtag is back. Hashtag fuck Jonas. Oh my god, you're back. Why? I hate you so much. I hate him. He's still not remorseful. There's not a hint of apology in him. There's no dignity for what happened. No, just, I feel so bad, I'm so sorry. None of it. He's still there claiming that Anne is the one who set him up in front of these other people. Even when they're alone, he could be doing this for show for the friends. Even when they're alone, he's still a prick and he's still claiming that she's bad. This character, man, fuck this character. I really hate this character. I have a feeling that Jonas might be winning the most hated award for me. I'm going to invent that. That's going to be Jonas's award. I don't think I hate any other character this season as much as I do Jonas. I'm trying to think. I'm watching quite a few animes. Hayase from To Your Eternity, but technically she's not. I don't like Kohaku from To Your Eternity. Is it the same vibe? Make sure you're subscribed to get my end of season review to see who's going to win the most hated award between Jonas and Hayase. I'll get back to you on this one. They're going to duke it out. Xiao hints at the person who perhaps was his first human and who she was. He grew up in a castle, however, he doesn't really react to this castle, so it's not this castle. She was a princess. Perhaps she's royalty. It definitely seems that we're suggesting this. But who is she? It would be very interesting to see if maybe she's from one of the other kingdoms, because even in that info dump at the start, we're told that there's quite a few factions. Maybe she's one of the factions who got wiped out, because technically he says that he had to crush the chambers to get rid of them completely. Maybe she's part of that, because technically Xiao says they killed her. That would make sense. That would also mean that the king is technically Xiao's enemy. That would be even more interesting to see if that is the case. Xiao gets very sentimental this week. However, Anne starts to get very anxious and worried and potentially jealous. Am I ever going to grow up? Am I actually going to look beautiful? Because all the words of Xiao saying that she's going to look beautiful when she's older, she starts to doubt them and she starts to wonder who Liz is, which makes her jealous, and she hates the fact that she's feeling like this, so she ends up cleaning her face, which is quite a funny moment because she gets blue on her face. Again, the mood is then ruined after Xiao turns into a bit of a heartthrob and gets quite sexy with her. It's ruined again by Jonas, of course. He ruins the mood. Oh, I hate you so much. He passes the first exam and moves into the tower. But I do wonder, did you cheat? How did you achieve this? I mean, we saw your art was okay at best. He must have made a fairy. He probably took the work she made into consideration and he saw what she made, and maybe he was trying to mimic it or something, and then that's what actually got through, because he might have tried to make her first piece again. The happy gurgling moment, I'm going to start calling these moments happy gurgles, when Xiao picks her up, gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. It's a happy gurgle from me because this makes my heart flutter, picking her up, putting her into bed. Soft, tender side of him, and it's there, and perhaps it's nostalgic. Perhaps he did the same thing for Liz, so you've got to wonder, he's doing this because he's had experience and he's treating her quite similar to her. Happy gurgle, guys, happy gurgle. Naturally, Anne passes. Her work feels correct. It wasn't accurate enough, which is what he technically said to both Jonas and Anne. I think Anne might have been a step closer, but once again, the plot is throwing both Jonas and Anne together to have them rivaling each other and them going head to head. The bit which probably made me rage quit almost was when Jonas said, "the likes of you." What exactly? Like, she's the victim. You know exactly what you've done. What exactly has she done to you, dude? Apart from reject you, but you weren't serious anyway. You are like the biggest piece of trash this season for me. Let's talk about the teaser next week, which really didn't sit comfortable for me. I felt uncomfortable looking at it. Jonas and Anne are technically locked up in a tower together. I don't like that, and the picture looks like they're stuck behind bars. Don't know why they're behind bars, whether Jonas's face looks like he's doing something to her. I don't know. He looks suspicious, like he's up to something. But then they both could be victims in this. They're both lured in by the money, and perhaps this is a trap. And the title of this is A False Farewell, but I'm not quite sure about that. I don't understand why that would be the case, so I'm a bit confused. Half of me wants to believe that they're setting a red herring up against William, because obviously William's important. He could technically start a war if he really wanted to, but he won't. I don't think he's got the funds for it anyway, because naturally the king has underfunded him to make sure that the rebellion doesn't happen again. I want to believe that he's just trying to make a picture of some fairy who really meant a lot to him, whether he loved her, he grew up alongside her and she looked after him like a mother figure. Maybe that's the case. I feel like the anime is trying to set William up as a bad guy right now, and perhaps he is. He could technically be bad, and maybe he's locked them up in the tower. But I don't know. I'm going to remain open-minded. I want to believe that there's more to this situation. Maybe it's a story that shows the other side, the one which lost, is technically the nicer side, because he's advocating for fairies to be equal. So I'm technically on that side, but I don't want there to be a war in the middle. So the story is starting to get interesting. I was a little bit concerned that we would run out of plot. Was it just going to be a case of waiting for her to enter again and that's the end? But no, this is the main plot. We've finally got the main plot kicking in, so I'm happy now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have had a happy gurgle this episode like me, and you're looking after yourselves. I hope you've got a really fun weekend plan. Have a great day, guys. See you next week. Bye bye.